let's get to the good stuff. And it ain't going to take long because we're there. Tony Schiavone was in the ring with William Regal. And before Regal had a chance to speak, MJF's music plays. And here comes him, and you can tell that he knew that he had a long story to tell because he didn't waste any time. He got to the ring. Soon as he was in the ring, the music cut off. Tony Schiavone vanished again. Why do they have him in the ring? But here comes MJF. And he told the story, and I'm not going to try to tell the story or give any of the high points. This was one of the most amazing verbal performances I've ever seen. But the story of how Regal treated him when he was 19, and some people are going to go absolutely apeshit that they said, oh, he got a job as a WWE job guy. And he said it on AEW. Well, it's a true story. And this is what's registering with people. Because it's not wink, wink, oh, this is a shoot because I'm calling you by your real name. It's he's telling a real story that happened to him. I've never heard this story before, but it certainly sounds plausible. It sounds believable. Maybe he branched off a little bit. Maybe Regal didn't tell him off as bad as he said he did at the end, but where does the work begin and end? We don't know. But much of this stuff happened, and he delivered the story in a way that not only made it clear, but made you listen to him and gave a reason for his motivation. This might have even been a supervillain origin story. Instead of gamma rays or a radioactive spider bite, he got pissed off by and disrespected by William Regal. And it made him want to get better to prove to everybody, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I don't know where this is going, where they're trying to want this to go with MJF. Because he's saying things that are ever more sympathetic to a person, and they're liking him anyway. But at the same time, my feeling is, and I'll say this publicly, if MJF was to switch babyface to where he starts selling like Ricky Morton and starts being nice to anyone or being polite to anyone or being respectful to anyone, it takes away what makes MJF special. They're going to cheer for him because he's far and away so much more talented and fresher and newer and different than everybody else in that fucking company and everybody else in this business, that people are going to love him. But they love the devil. They don't love the reformed devil. So the best thing he can do, and the best thing they can do with him, because they got a winner here, is just realize that he needs to be, with the provocation and the origin story and the details that he's fleshing out, he still needs to be the devil. It's just those fans are going to learn to love them some devil. If he becomes a nice guy,
well, no,
you're taking it away from him.
He has to stay who he is, no matter what, whether he's a heel or a babyface or whatever you want to call him.
So, but what a performance! And he even said, "I would have killed myself, but I wouldn't give you the satisfaction, Regal." And then, and honestly, here's the thing: after telling that story, he turned around and switched heel again at the end of the thing. By the time he quit speaking, he was right back as a heel. But when he threw the microphone down, the crowd gave him, it wasn't a standing ovation, but it was an ovation for the verbal performance that he just gave. It was amazing. They even recognized, regardless of whether we agreed or disagreed with what he said or whatever the fuck, that was one of the goddamn most, and especially these people have sat through an hour of this horse shit at that point. But my God. And then As soon as Regal starts talking, the people are starting to boo him because he's been made to look bad by MJF. But Regal, remember when he debuted and he even apologized afterwards? He was rusty. It went nowhere. This was Regal. On any other night with anybody in the ring but MJF, this William Regal's would have been the best promo of the week or the best performance or whatever. Because he reminded MJF that he was 16 when he went to the carnivals and had grown men kicking his ass. And this is true, and everybody knows it's been in his book. And that lit the fire under his ass. And so he lit a fire under MJF's ass. And he chastised him for assaulting Tony Schiavone, but he said he knew that MJF always had it, but he let Regal down because he hasn't proven anything. He's hired people to do his dirty work. And he turned his back on MJF and offered him the shot, and that's where MJF wouldn't do it. And Regal told him he's still got a lot to prove, and for once, somebody walks off on MJF and leaves him thinking about it. I want to see, as if I had confidence as a professional and as a fan of his, if I had confidence that at some point they're not going to fuck MJF up with this bad booking or Tony's stupid ideas or Jericho's advice or somebody getting in the way of this guy, I would love this without reservation because I don't know where it's going. I want to see the next installment. I want to hear them interact again. I want to know what MJF is going to do. It's perfect. If there was a Bill Watts, Eddie Graham, Dusty Rhodes, somebody in charge that you would trust with a generational talent's career in their hands, then I would be all over this. But I'm just trepidatious because if it's just MJF doing things, I'm fine. But if Tony or any of his stooges and suck-ups start meddling in this, I'm afraid for what might happen. But otherwise, fucking brilliant. Wait a minute. Both Regal and MJF.
Yeah, you said it was a great performance from MJF. You know, like, I guess a lot of great performances in wrestling. I think there was a lot of truth in what he said. You know, where they're going from here on is obviously something that they're going to work on. But it sounded like there was a lot of real shit in this. And that's, of course, what makes wrestling angles work and what makes people care. They're teasing a lot of different things. Whether it's MJF outright being a babyface, whether it's Regal turning with MJF, whether it's MJF not breaking the rules, MJF turning against the firm. I mean, they've teased a lot of different things. And no one knows what's going on. MJF's the one guy, other than the Jericho feud, which we all knew how it was going to end, unfortunately, you can never predict what's going to happen. And whatever's going on with him and Moxley over the AEW title, they announced the title match later on in the show coming up. You have all this drama now with him and Regal. It's an intriguing time, and he's the one guy whose segment delivers each and every week on this show. Like you said, and I think because of what he went through, I have to imagine this guy knows as well as everyone else what that 1 year long Jericho feud was. And although he's not doing anything with Jericho, as we've talked about here on the show, and as we announced earlier in the show with this press release, Jericho has a more hands-on role with AEW right now than ever before. His friends are agents. He's very, very close with Mega. He has Tony's ear. And a lot of his ideas are getting on TV more than ever before. The Young Bucks aren't there to counter-program Jericho. CM Punk's not there to counter-program Jericho. Of course, Cody is long gone. I think MJF is hopefully in a position where Tony Khan realizes this is the number one star in my company, and he certainly will be going forward unless we fuck it up. He's not going to let Jericho or anyone else near whatever he does. I have to think he knows that if he's going to do this, he has to do it right himself.
Oh, well, we shall see.
Because Jericho's the one. See, that's the thing. I feel like, you know, I remember years ago at the Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl, there was the nice moment where everyone was in the ring, and all of a sudden there was a chant in the whole building of Eddie. You know, it was very nice. His family's in the ring, and they're chanting Eddie. What always bothered me was I saw who started it. I saw that it was Don Leibel, the photographer who's friends with Eddie at ringside, started it and looked around to get people going. It felt predetermined. And I feel like when Jericho put out there and insisted on it and trying to show what a genius he is at that press scrum, that MJF needs to be a babyface, it kind of poisoned everything. Because once that was put out there from Jericho with Tony Khan sitting next to him, insisting on it, that's the only thing I worry about. This wasn't as natural as it should have been because it's been forced by comments and by certain people.
Well, because you've got a fucking, egotistical canned ham sitting there wanting to give his viewpoints on everything instead of letting things happen. Can you imagine if Vince McMahon had been out at a press scrum and when Austin first started getting popular but was still a heel going, we're going to switch Steve babyface sooner or later. You people are just loving him. No, he let it fucking happen. He didn't tell them how to react when they were already reacting a way that was beneficial to him.
But again, with all that said, I'm intrigued by MJF and Regal. I'm intrigued where this is going. As much as I like MJF's matches, I'm not looking forward to MJF versus Moxley because I know it'll be Moxley's match more than it'll be MJF's match. I just know it. But we'll see where they go. I have faith in MJF. Since the Jericho feud, MJF has a really high batting average. Next to CM Punk, probably the highest batting average in AEW. So I have faith in whatever's going on. I have a little bit of faith.